Hey everyone, it's Raj from 3CB Performance, back at it again with LFR. The Lakers recently announced that Kyle Kuzma has a quote, stress reaction in his left foot, very likely diagnosed via MRI, that first manifested as ankle soreness during the tail end of USA basketball summer camp and will limit his participation in Lakers training camp until at least mid-October. In this video, I'll deep dive into the injury, Kuz's recovery timeline, and the rehab process. A bone stress reaction consists of an inflammation, swelling response at a specific part of the bone due to repetitive micro-trauma. That inflammation is why Kuz's issue was initially labeled as, quote, ankle soreness. Normally, any micro-trauma that is caused by running, jumping, etc. is mitigated by an equal remodeling or adaptation response by the bone. This process is really important because it's how bone becomes stronger. It's the underpinning of a very important principle in orthopedics known as Wolff's Law, which states that bone grows and remodels directly in response to the stresses placed upon it. However, when that ratio of micro-trauma to remodeling is thrown off, the micro-trauma accumulates and eventually gets to the point of causing a stress reaction. That typically happens after a significant increase in activity or intensity of activity, particularly in running and jumping athletes. In Kuz's case, that jumping activity was very likely USA basketball training camp. A stress reaction, when left unchecked, untreated, and not rehabbed appropriately, can lead to a stress fracture. However, when caught early and managed appropriately, they can be dealt with very effectively. The return timeline for stress reactions in the foot depends on the location of the reaction. Some areas are considered, quote, low risk with shorter timelines, while others are, quote, high risk with longer timelines, with the risk referring to their ability to heal, typically related to blood supply in that area, and propensity to worsen and develop into a stress fracture. We'll very likely never know the details of Kuz's injury, but there are multiple indicators which tell me that his falls under the, quote, low risk category. Phase 1 in treating a stress reaction is ceasing the activity which is causing it. Kuz did that when he bowed out of USA basketball training camp. Additionally, with stress reactions that are in high-risk areas or causing high levels of pain or discomfort, you'll be placed into a cam boot and/or crutches to reduce the stress on that area. I haven't seen any evidence that Kuz was ever in a boot. This is an excellent sign that a stress reaction is in a low-risk area of the foot. Phase 2 begins with gradually ramping up activity with accompanying rehab to work on targeted strengthening, mobility, and potentially any biomechanical deficits that may be contributing to increased load on that specific part of the foot. The latter could consist of movement repatterning, such as working with Kuz to soften his landing on jumps by absorbing more force with his upper legs, or reducing the stride length while running to decrease the amount of ground reaction force, GRF, through his feet. Potentially, he may even have custom inserts to help alleviate certain stresses on his foot. We've seen Kuz continue to train and work out on his feet in a limited capacity after USA basketball camp without much of an isolated rest period, which again is a very positive sign that he has a low risk stress reaction. He said at Media Day that he's maintaining his cardio via lower impact methods such as swimming and cycling, and based on his activity level at training camp thus far, he's very likely restricted from higher intensity weight bearing such as running and jumping on that foot. The team has said that Kuz will have an MRI when the team gets back from China on or around October 13th. This MRI is a standard follow-up to check on the progress of healing and will put Kuz's recovery at roughly 8 weeks, which lines up with the typical return to play (RTP) timetable for low-risk stress reaction. Depending on how the imaging looks, he'd be cleared for full return to basketball or continue with his methodical activity progression until that MRI shows sufficient healing. In the meantime, as training camp begins and the team travels to China, the fact that Kuz is traveling with the team is also another very positive sign. He and the rehab team will continue to gradually progress the intensity and quantity of his activity while always checking to see how the foot responds during and after. Obviously, any stress reaction in the foot isn't ideal, but it all adds up when you look at how Kuz's activity level and intensity jumped up for USA training camp and the initial symptoms of ankle soreness. The really good news is that all the indicators point toward a low-risk stress reaction that was caught early on and is being managed methodically, which bodes very well for his recovery and performance this season. The team will certainly continue to keep an eye on it as he gets back to full on-court activity and the season progresses. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. My goal is to provide you with in-depth, evidence-based, narrative-free analysis, and you can always find me on IG and Twitter at 3CB Performance, along with my own YouTube channel where I deep dive into player injuries of all shapes and sizes. Make sure to sub to that channel along with subbing to this one and following LFR on all social media. 3CB out.